is where we decided to kind of focus our efforts. So that's who we are. What we do is we have a 3-pillared mission. So the first is, how do we build nonprofit and rural community capacity? So we've got an AmeriCorps program where we will be placing about 100 people all across the state to add some additional people power to communities. We've got a nonprofit certificate and full-blown education program that we manage. Our second pillar is advancing regional issues. So that's some of the advocacy work that we've been doing, storytelling work, Change Network that Ellen was involved in was a huge component of that. And then the final pillar that we have, and this is the broadest pillar, is facilitating community solutions. So that includes our grant making with the Bush Foundation, a lot of our one-on-one engagements, and our entire kind of small production agriculture portfolio. So when we look at what that is, that's really the work at our Strong Farm Incubator. So as Emily mentioned, we manage the Dakota Double Up program. We support a multi-farm CSA out of the Minot area. So we're engaged in local foods in a number of ways across the state. But when we think about what it is that we're doing at the Strong Farm Incubator, we really have just a few components. So in November of 2022, we were approached by a private producer who said, hey, we're going to be buying this business out, and we want to make sure that other small producers across the state have access to some of the same opportunities we do. Do you want to go in on it with us? So our board quickly decided that yes, absolutely. Let's figure out what this public-private partnership could look like. And that's where the property that is the Strong Farm Incubator outside of Baldwin kind of came to be. So with the incubator farm, we provide individuals who are seeking to engage in small production agriculture, exclusive access to land, mentorship and education. We're building out a land link program to make sure that folks really have a bridge from where they are at the incubator farm to being a larger, more viable business. We're looking at how we might support financing options. So working with a few small bankers to make sure that there are resources that might be directly tailored and available to small producers. And then of course, the meat of what we're going to talk about today, which is our regional processing facility and mobile market truck. So we decided we were going to go in on buying the incubator farm property in November 2022. We utilized 2023 as a development year. So what partnerships do we need to bring in place? What might our criteria be? How do we staff up to support this type of program? And in 2024, we officially launched our first cohort for the Strong Farm Incubator. We've kept the number of participants in the incubator farm experience to be capped at 5. That's partially for spatial issues, because we do plan to have up to 3 cohorts running simultaneously. So space issues as well as one-on-one kind of attention opportunities. So we had 5 individuals participate in cohort 1 in 2024. 4 of those 5 individuals have come back for year 2 for 2025. And then we added another 5, I believe, for 2025 for year 1 experience. So we'll kind of be consistently bringing people in and cycling them out for that 3-year experience. So we know with just talking to small producers and having the Strong Farm Incubator be run by 4 individual producers, that it's not just enough to be able to grow food. You actually have to be able to sell that food and get it where it needs to go. So we began working with small producers in the area to say, okay, what might a regional processing facility look like? How might we do this? Is it viable? Is it something that could be self-sustaining? We went through a number of feasibility study opportunities and did quite a bit of grant seeking and grant writing. And it would be September of 2024 we were awarded a federal grant to help us build out our regional processing facility, which will be a cold storage space. You see there's a farmer's market space. These are in no way final drawings. We're working through final design right now. A commercial kitchen space and a classroom space. So not only will the folks who grow food at the Strong Farm Incubator, not only will they be able to grow it, they'll also be able to manufacture it. They'll be able to kind of aggregate with other producers in the area who want to utilize the facility. And then that brings us to, so construction on this will start in July. But that brings us then to kind of what we were here to talk about today, which is our mobile market truck. So again, we are trying very, very hard to support small production agriculture from a number of angles. So support people to get into the industry, to grow, to have a solid business, to be able to put some money in their pocket before they expend large amounts on leasing or buying a property. Then they'll have the regional processing facility for that kind of processing and aggregation piece. Now the mobile market truck is coming forward to support that distribution. So again, we did some feasibility studies, worked with Dr. Neil Doty to understand what might this look like? How could we make sure that we do this in a way that's sustainable and really in a way that meets the needs of local producers? Kind of, we looked at a 100-mile radius. So once we got the business plan all up and running in the fall of 2023, we did some additional kind of grant seeking and grant writing, and were able to be awarded a USDA NIFA grant to actually purchase the mobile market truck, and then to be able to pay driver stipends for up to 4 years. That one is kind of being under, that one is a grant that we are awaiting federal clearance for with the new executive orders. But we're hopeful that it will still remain intact. And if it doesn't, we've got a few backup plans or ideas of how we will kind of otherwise get it funded. So that's a bit of history on the mobile market truck. So we were awarded that or notified of that back in early 2024. And the amazing Ann Olson and the amazing Desiree Carlson, who are on our team, have been actively engaged in a mobile market truck class to learn kind of the ins and outs of what should you think about, how might you operate it, what feasibly could you do, what type of regulations will you be under. They've been working to understand that for the last, I think, 4 or 5 months. And then we've got another team member who is going through kind of some grocery planning classes to make sure that we have sufficient organizational knowledge capable of operating a mobile market truck. But we will be looking at doing a soft launch. Ann and Des have been working with partners within the Bismarck-Mandan area, and we've chosen to do a soft launch in the Bismarck-Mandan area because of the buy-in from a school district down there, or from a local school down there, and because of our proximity to Bismarck. So we're gonna really try to work out the kinks this summer before having a full-fledged mobile market truck program that will be planned out and ready to roll probably the spring of 2026. So we're going to be looking at doing some distribution and aggregation with the local school district of small producer products all across that Bismarck-Mandan area, a greater Bismarck-Mandan area, I should say. We will have a mobile market truck at a few Bismarck-Mandan locations, really to beta test that software process, make sure that we know and understand what that foot traffic flow might be, that we think about what that demand might be, and that when we're officially ready to launch, we've just got everything down pat. So we will be beginning that in June of 2025. So the mobile market truck will be housed or headquartered out of our Strong Farm Incubator location in Baldwin, which is about 20 miles north of Bismarck. But we are going to be looking at probably a broader footprint than we originally thought when completing that feasibility study. And this will provide us with a few additional opportunities to support more local producers, and then to just, engage in some more partnerships. So we're really excited about that. Thinking about, if this is successful, how might we look at kind of other satellite locations and things like that. So that's where we are. We're very excited to start beta testing what the mobile market truck might look like, how it might function, what might its hours be, where might good foot traffic locations be, and then how do we bring that out into rural communities. We've gotten quite a few requests from areas, particularly those that don't have existing grocery access, to say, hey, can this be a bridge for some fresh and healthy foods to be located or to be sold in some of these areas? So we're excited about what that might be. Anne and Des have learned a lot working with Quinn and Candace, particularly around getting SNAP certification for a truck that is not necessarily a single local producer. So just kind of navigating some of those back end inventory type issues as well. So we're really excited to talk more, especially 6 months from now, once that beta testing has been completed. So that's where we are right now with the Strong Farm Incubator. We will be celebrating our 2-year anniversary in May, and just very excited for what that partnership might bring, not only for the small producers that had the opportunity to be directly on site, but also for folks across our state. So would love to answer any questions that folks have, or maybe clarify some information as well.
Anyone have any questions right away for Megan?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Brenda Bauman, and I am a first-timer joining this. A colleague of mine, Kendra Rosen. Kendra, I hope you're not on here. I butchered your last name. Shared it with me. And I'm recently partnering with the Red River Regional Council and putting together a small business incubator in downtown Grafton, North Dakota, which is centered around food. And we are in the process of cleaning off and looking at our design. And I'm curious about the approach you use to scope out your commercial kitchen at your incubator.
Sure. So our Strong Farm Incubator team, we put together just kind of some preliminary information. We have an individual on our team. Her name is Barb, and she loves to pull together different models and kind of scope the internet for best practice manuals. And there are several best practices manuals on commercial community kitchens. And with those best practices manuals, they have not only how you might operate it, but potential supplies lists. So our first thing that we did is we went through all of that, and then we tried to match it with what the needs of the local producers were in the area. So trying to understand potential for canning, for baking, for dehydrator space, making sure we've got enough electrical, things like that. So we kind of did like a literature review first, if you will, paired it with what we heard in our feasibility study to make sure that the equipment that was recommended really matched the needs of producers in the area. So that's what we used to first write the grant and kind of estimate all of our budget items for that grant. Now that we've gotten that grant and know that we have kind of that sum of money, our team members have toured, I believe, 2 commercial kitchens in the area to understand firsthand from people what works well for them and what doesn't work well for them. And then also working with the state to understand, because we want our kitchen to be as highly certified or inspected as possible. So working with the state to truly understand the regulations to make sure that we're meeting, if not exceeding that. So they've toured a couple commercial kitchens, learned directly from the folks who are utilizing them, what they like, don't like. like a couple simple things that should be obvious, but maybe weren't obvious at the time of make sure you have enough electrical amp stuff. So I'm not very construction-y or techy.
I
in that way.
understand. Yep. Gotcha.
Make sure you can run the oven, the blender, the freezer, the this, the that, all at the same time. That way you don't end up blowing fuses.
Right.
So yeah, that's the way that we've approached it. Just trying to make sure that the needs of the local producers that we talk to will be met by what's in the kitchen, and then we are meeting those state guidelines and taking that practical knowledge into account.
Great, excellent. And somebody just wrote about Square One Kitchen. Thank you. They were on our target list to go visit again. A subset visited earlier before I got involved, but I like to immerse myself in things. So I appreciate that lead and the information. Thank you, Megan.
And Brenda, if you would ever want to talk to Anne and Des on our team are much more well versed. Like they are the people that know this deeply. They're wonderful to speak with. I can't give them enough flowers because they've got this all in their brain. They'd be happy to talk to you too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's all for now.
Thanks for coming, Brenda. We're glad to have you here for the first time and welcome you back anytime.
Sounds great. I appreciate the invitation.
Any other questions right off the bat for Megan? I have a list myself, but I want to give others opportunity.
I have a question on the producer end of things. Was there a critical mass that needed to be reached in terms of products for the truck? And then like what, is there meat on there too by chance, or is there what kind of products are on there?
So the nice part about knowing that we didn't want the truck to have to be something where we had to focus on making a profit more than just annual maintenance and travel costs. That allowed us to really think about more meeting needs than having to make that profit. So we don't have a critical mass of producers. We had with our feasibility study, I think, and I have to pull it up to know for sure, but I know it was in excess of 15 producers who were interested in utilizing the truck. And there's this balance of how much will they utilize it? How much time might that take? What's that wear and tear on the truck? So we wanted to keep it a little bit of a lower number. So Mary, who's on our team, is going to be looking at how do you create, particularly for this soft launch this fall, for the school farm to school piece, a route that makes most sense time-wise, makes most sense for the wear and tear on the vehicle. So we're still trying to figure that out, because even though people signed on to say, yes, here's where I'm located, this might be our potential poundage, if you will, all of that might still change between the time that we collected that data and the time we're able to launch. So we took it all with a really big grain of salt. The truck will be capable of transporting meat as well. So for our soft launch, depending on where things fall with USDA NIFA, we're going to be looking at renting a box truck, which won't be refrigerated, just again to see what does that foot traffic look like? How do we make sure that that we've got all of these things ironed out before we purchase that full-on refrigerated truck, to make sure that we get the correct one. We went back and forth a lot with Neil Doty around how do you pick a truck that's big enough, that is refrigerated, that you can just use a normal driver's license to drive, and that has a good reputation, or like isn't going to break down. So we've got a few in the hopper. There are a couple that are actually available in the Bismarck area, but we don't want to pull the trigger and buy, like, because those things are $100,000. We're really trying to make sure that we know exactly what one before we buy it, because you can't trade it back in, really. So yeah, that was a very long answer to your question. I apologize.
No, that's great. Yeah, thank you. I might have missed this detail. Will the truck be picking up the product at these various farms?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Those folks that are in more outlying areas, and that's like a part of the route planning, because there are a couple of producers that say that, well, we'd just bring all of our stuff, to the processing facility because we want to do some manufacturing, or because we want to look at partnerships with other producers, whether it's like CSA baskets, things like that. And there are others that like, nope, you come pick it up. So we've got to get all of those details ironed out, which is why I think that soft launch for us is going to be really, really helpful.
Yeah, exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one of my questions kind of goes along with that, but you mentioned like working with the Bismarck School District, which is awesome, and then also foot traffic too. So do you foresee like the school district ordering ahead of time, and then so you have like a minimum order there, and then you'd also set up somewhere in a public location for kind of farmers market style shopping?
Exactly. So it's my understanding in talking with some of the schools that some of the challenges of farm to school are that finding a common time for producers to drop off their food. Sometimes they run late, or maybe they might not make it at all, and then having to plan for that school staff to be there. So what we're hoping to do by kind of aggregating or pulling that all together and having one time that the school really needs to worry about being there to pick up their local produce, that will just lessen those barriers for more producers to enter into farm to school, and make it something where schools feel then more comfortable because they have one point of contact to go to say, hey, we need X amount of this, and this. Mary and the team will go and get that figured out. So we've got one school that's really excited about what that will look like this fall. And then, yes, so the school will order what they need. And then we're testing a few like potential high traffic sites like senior centers. We've been invited by a senior center to like test out, because they have, daily meals, and they have quite a few people that come through. And then when we're thinking about Dakota Double Up, how do we do all of that? So there's a lot that we still have to figure out by June, July. But there's so much opportunity to really braid like all the good things that we've got going on together to make this as successful as possible. So yes, working with schools and places where there's foot traffic, working with the school with their feeding program at a local park as well. So
Cool. I could see that being really helpful for farmers too, because sometimes they can't meet the demand as one farm to the school. So that'll help pull them all together and give the school the amount they need in one shot. So awesome. Any other questions for Megan?
I have just a comment. I think it's kind of a cool educational opportunity too, to kind of expose more people to the local food sector, and getting more people eating local food ultimately. So yeah, it's cool.
There's so much great opportunity and I think that's the hard thing, is that there's a lot of people who are working in this space, and that's really, really great. And understanding what everybody is doing, like so on our grant making side, right, on our through Creative Community Solutions, we funded Minot Commission on Aging this fall to get an additional blast freezer and to increase their amount of food that they can buy for Meals on Wheels. So with their Meals on Wheels program, they can go to outlying areas. They get a big van. Well, they have several big vans, but they get their big van. They stuff it full of frozen meals, basically, that have to meet specific federal guidelines with regard to nutrition and sodium and all that good stuff. And they bring it out to people in sometimes 30 to 60 day supplies. They can accept SNAP. They also want to buy the produce that they use for those meals locally, but they just don't know how, they don't know how to go about it because they can't do that. So it's like, okay, they're doing this. What if we did that? Is there a way even the mobile market truck plays a role in that type of process too, So, I mean, I apologize. That was a whole big long ramble of like, there's so much great opportunity if we just think about doing things a little bit differently.
I was curious also with the producers, is your organization going to be buying the product from them and then like working directly with the school so the school is like eliminating all the back and forth with everybody, or how would that work?
With regard to farm to school, I'm not sure yet how that will work, but for anything that we sell to individual consumers from the truck, we'll have to buy that ahead of time. So we would buy from the producers. That way we can do the Dakota double up, if that's applicable for people. So we've been trying to talk about how do we account for some of the stuff, and that's a part of why we wanted to do that soft launch or beta test of, might we have a couple pounds of leftovers or not sold food, or are we going to have a lot more? And then how do we then leverage that processing facility to say, okay, the stuff didn't sell, how do we can it, how do we do something else with it? So there's a whole lot that we have to figure out, and we won't be able to figure it out until we actually get in it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Anyone else have anything for Megan?
Sorry, I have another one. And kind of related to your question, Ellen. It might be something down the road, but will the producers' branding be retained on the product, or will it be aggregated on the truck?
that is something we're still figuring out too.
Mm.
So the only reason we've been talking about buying it is not necessarily worrying about like the Strength and ND brand getting out there. It's like purely logistical. Like we can't do this unless we buy it ahead of time. So with Anne and Des and Mary kind of spearheading this work, I imagine, and I feel 100% confidence in this, if the brand can't be retained after it's already purchased by us and then sold back out, it will be put out there in some other way. So maybe it is on the individual truck itself. Like if we have a route of people that go through, maybe there's a little sticker then that goes on, you know, these are all of the producers that participate in this particular thing. So that's kind of stuff that we're going to have to figure out. I know we ourselves that like, we're not necessarily interested in having like strong farm incubator food brand or Strength and ND food brand. It's more of like, how do we get all of this good food that's being grown out to people that can actually do something with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Pulling all the people together. You're like the conduit.
Trying to figure that out. We're just a giant water slide, getting people from one spot to another, but we just got to build that slide somehow.
Well, it's super exciting, this whole project, and I'm so glad I live in Bismarck and get to like experience it and can go up to the incubator. If anyone ever is in the area and wants to visit the incubator, the greenhouse up there is super cool to go. They have events and it's really beautiful and fun place to go shopping for your plants. So highly recommend that.
One of our interns is going to be growing mushrooms. So we have mushrooms and peppers, and it's good stuff. So
Awesome.
we have an amazing team.
That's awesome. Megan, I wonder, we have just a couple of minutes, but could you update us on that bill that you were working on for rural North Dakota?
Yeah. So SB 2097, it originally started out as a $50 million rural community endowment fund with $5 million to be given to kind of seed fund that grant making process. It would be a pass through the Department of Commerce, and the Department of Commerce would complete a competitive RFP process to select a statewide grant maker to kind of manage the grant making of that fund, with that grant maker being overseen by a legislatively selected 9-member grant making committee or board of directors. This is for a couple of reasons. One is we all know that Organizational capacity ebbs and flows. Sometimes an organization is really effective for a number of years. Then a few things happen, they change focus or whatnot, and they're maybe not as effective. So really having that opportunity to cycle in organizations over time as we build this permanent 100, 200-year endowment fund is really important. So we made it all the way through the Senate side. In Senate appropriations, we were cut down to $5 million. So that's where we stood at crossover. We had a hearing on March 6th with the House Political Subdivisions Committee, and that is where we are still sitting right now. It's my understanding they are going to be looking to take action on it on Thursday or Friday of this week. So I'll be back down there then. But if we make it through House Political Subs, then we have to go over to House Appropriations before going to the full House floor. So this would be for a permanent endowment fund, a permanent investment in communities of 1,000 or less, no matching funds needed to access funds. It could be really transformative for rural North Dakota. So yeah, that's where we are.
Great. Anything that we can do as a group or individually, I'm sure getting people to write letters and support it in any way they can is helpful.
Yeah. So reaching out to members of the House Political Subdivisions Committee is helpful. When we designed this legislation, it wasn't designed by Strengthen ND. It was designed by people from all across rural North Dakota, particularly those of communities of less than 1,000. So we've gotten some pushback of saying, you know, why not my community? Are you trying to pit communities against one another? That couldn't be farther from the truth. We know at 1,000 or less, there's that capacity cliff. It's that spot where they tend to not have full-time city auditors. There typically isn't a JDA or a chamber. There's just less people around to do the work. So that's why we're just super passionate about what this could mean for rural spaces, and having that clarification to folks about why that capacity threshold was selected, or why that eligibility threshold was selected. And if you live in a community of 1,000 or less, if you would contact those legislators to say, hey, I know this is really important and can mean a lot for my community to be able to plan on this particular funding source over time, that could all be really helpful.
Great. Maybe if you could just type the bill number into the chat, and then if people want to learn more about that and keep updated, they can do a little more research on that themselves. Thank you so much, Megan, for presenting and sharing all the exciting projects you have going on with Strengthen ND. It's really great work you guys do as an organization in our whole state. So I'm going to move us along on the agenda so we don't get behind schedule here, but we have North Central Regional Food Business Center updates from Stephanie. And do you want to present as well, Stephanie? You have some slides or?
I don't need to share my screen, but
Okay.
I will put a document in the chat.
Great.
So some of you may be familiar with the North Central Regional Food Business Center, and some of you may be less familiar with it. The North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance has been a part of this 3-state program. It's a USDA funded program to spur economic development, grow local food businesses, and just support mid-tier value chains and grow our local food systems. That's been a partnership led by Region 5 Development Commission in Staples, Minnesota. In each state, the Farmers Union was the lead coordinating entity. The regional councils were technical assistance providers, and North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance, supported by farms, was providing technical assistance advisory, meaning we were the connector between the economic development business advisors and the actual local food producers. That funding like a lot of federal funding, was frozen recently. So the USDA can only reimburse invoices for work done through January 19th of 2025. Because of that, and because the funds are passed through Region 5 Development Commission, they had to terminate all contracts of the North Central Regional Food Business Center. Otherwise, they would be on the hook for all of the pass-through funds, and they simply couldn't sustain that. So our North Central Regional Food Business Center is effectively on pause. The intent is not to end the whole thing altogether, but simply to pause it until hopefully the funding freeze ends. This also means that the business builder grants, which were slated to open on March 1st, did not open and are also on pause. Those of you who had business builder grants from the first round, I'm sure Candace Zimmerman and the team from Region 5 have been in touch with you about your current reimbursements. The regional food business centers did collect, so this is one of 12 centers across the nation, and they put together a letter to USDA Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, that I'll put that in the chat so you can find it directly. But basically just advocating for that funding to continue and really emphasizing the value and impact that these regional food business centers have created. Collectively, these centers are going to distribute over 100 million to American farmers and food businesses throughout the country. And oh, I guess it's not in there. There were some statistics about the number of technical assistance provisions that have been created and the amount of dollars that have been brought to our communities. So, but along with that, this is just one of thousands and thousands and thousands of organizations across the nation that are being affected by these federal funding freezes. And Farms is in touch with partners across the nation. And so I pulled together a quick resource list that I've added to the chat. So Civil Eats has compiled a national resource guide for producers related to, one, just tracking the number of executive orders and actions that have taken place, but also what you can do if your funding has been frozen or terminated. Also, a really useful one is Farm Commons. They're a sustainable ag legal aid organization. Let me clarify that. Legal education organization based in Minnesota. They serve the entire nation. And they've been holding community conversations every couple weeks or so. The next one is March 28th. And they've also published some resources on what you can do if your funding is frozen. I think what's important to note, a lot of the conversations are about funding to farmers, and a lot of that funding is through the NRCS, EQIP, and CSP programs. Here in North Dakota, you're going to hear that across the nation that farmers are not being paid. Here in North Dakota, NRCS is still paying EQIP and CSP contracts. They're still reimbursing farmers, and they're still taking applications for new contracts. And Casey Olson from NRCS is on the call today. Casey, did you want to add anything? Okay, Well, Casey and I were communicating in the chat. So Casey did confirm that it is still the case that they are still paying those contracts and taking new applications. And that includes the 823 program, which is specifically for transitioning to certified organic production. So also, I recently spoke with Michael Standard of the North Dakota News Co-op about the effects of the federal funding freeze, and shared some contacts with other folks that he can reach out to. So his first article was going to be about the effects of the tariffs on North Dakota agriculture, but he was also looking at a second article. So I guess keep an eye out for that. Does anyone have questions about the Regional Food Business Center or the funding freezes in general?
I think there was an article in the forum like last week.
Okay.
Remember right? If I saw something, but I don't know if it was with the gentleman he spoke with. So it's getting covered.
Yeah. I think the main message, it's a little bit difficult to quantify and really tell the story of the impacts of these federal funding freezes, especially for a lot of us, our fund whose funding hasn't actually been terminated, it's just frozen. So the biggest impact is it's really difficult to make decisions or move forward with projects. And in the case of the Regional Food Business Center, we were gaining a lot of momentum and a lot of traction. And so we're hoping not to lose that momentum. I should say that those of us, we are still meeting. The North Dakota State partners with the Regional Food Business Center are still meeting, those who want to. It's kind of on a voluntary basis now. Amanda, did you want to say anything about that?
No, but I think you covered everything that I was gonna talk on, Stephanie, so I really don't have anything else to add. There's still the second Tuesdays, I guess, at 10 for those who want to join, so.
And Farms is still continuing our work to provide technical assistance to producers, to provide education to producers, and to provide mentorship and peer support to producers. So we're still fighting the good fight, even though our funding is frozen.
Stephanie, is the plan still to hopefully revisit in the fall and see if they can renegotiate contracts at that time, or is it just up in the air totally right now?
It depends on which contracts you're talking about.
Region 5 Food Business Center is what I was referring to.
So it's all just in a holding pattern. If the funding is released, then they would definitely renegotiate all the contracts. But when that will happen, we don't know.
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
Stephanie, I have a general federal funding question, and maybe this is asking or going in a different direction than your area of expertise, but are there instances of other sectors of federal funding froze? And I mean, is that being unfroze at this point yet? Or I don't know, I was just wondering if the RFBC funding is unique in any regards, being that it's froze and there's no timeline for when it might unfreeze.
So there's I think RFBC is not unique. This funding freeze is affecting many sectors across many disciplines. I have not been able to devote the time it would take to keep track of all the different sectors. And the key theme is lack of information. So this is not something where we're getting nobody's receiving a notification that your funding is frozen. What happens is you go to submit an invoice and you get a rejection that says we're only paying invoices up to January 19th, 2025. Or you find out from your peers. But the main issue is just complete lack of communication. No.
Mm.
Yeah, I can confirm that as well with like through Light Spring, we work with the Department of Energy a lot and tribal nations, and they're experiencing the same thing. It's just a lot of sorting out if it's frozen or if they're going to get funding, that kind of thing. So we're all in it together.
So I
So
have a question, and I know it's on the agenda, maybe Jill can answer this, but is the rural development value added production grant, is that on like freeze or pause? Because I think the applications are sometimes open or due here in April. I was just curious of that one. I haven't really followed that one to know if what the status were on anything with like REAP or. Thank you, Jill.
yeah, it's very uneven. Some programs are still moving forward as usual, and like NRCS is still accepting applications and funding contracts.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, and everyone that added to that conversation. Really good information for us moving forward to research. We just have 5 minutes left, and I want to be conscious of everyone's time. So we do have a few member updates. Looks like there's a Farms Going Organic final webinar. Free to attend. There's a link to register on the agenda there. March 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time. And then North Dakota Department of Agriculture Farm to School Equipment Grant. It says it can be used to purchase processing equipment or physical improvements to a current setup. Applications due on March 31st. There's also a link to that in the agenda. And then USDA Rural Development, the Value Added Producer Grant, that is going to be open and due April 17th. So those are great opportunities. And then on the NDLFDA side, our next meeting is going to be for the UTTC, United Tribes Technical College here in Bismarck. They have a new greenhouse, and it's like this state-of-the-art, beautiful greenhouse, zero energy greenhouse. And we're going to do a in-person tour. And if you can't come in person, you're far away, we'll still have the online forum. We'll have one of our board members there with their phone or whatever. So you can sign up to attend in person, just so we kind of have an idea of how many people to expect if you are in the Bismarck area or want to travel down to see us. Otherwise, join us online. Any other member updates?
I also want to share, there are quite a few other bills that we should be following in the North Dakota legislature. And the most important is SB 2228, which appropriates $1 million from the general fund to Department of Commerce for grants to rural grocery stores. And my message in the chat was a little bit convoluted, but I put together a Google Doc where I shared information about that bill and some other bills. Basically, I went through the legislative website, and you can sort bills by topic. So I looked at the ones related to agriculture and food, but specifically Senate Bill 2228. Ellen Huber is asking for support. Ellen from the North Dakota Association of Rural Electric Cooperatives. Calls and emails of support to members of the House Appropriations Committee may be the only way to reach them. So the window has passed to provide testimony on the bill, but you can directly reach out to that House Appropriations Committee Specifically, we need for legislators on the Appropriations Committee to know that funding for the program is not in the budget submitted by North Dakota Department of Commerce. So renewal of the program does require separate action. And this was a valuable program for rural grocery stores last year. So the Google Doc that I shared in the chat has several other bills to watch, including an additional resource for rural communities, Senate Bill 2390, which would provide a rural catalyst grant fund. So keep an eye on that one as well.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. Any other updates? Megan, could you mention those two opportunities through Strengthen ND?
So coming up on April 30th, we have two deadlines. The first is for Bush Prize North Dakota. This is a program that honors organizations and communities that have a track record of engaging in creative community-based problem solving. Bush Prize is changing up a little bit this year. In the past, it was an unrestricted award of up to $500,000 for up to one organization, or could be given to multiple organizations. For 2025, it has shifted a little bit because we're working with all of the other state-based partners around equity. It will be 2 awards of up to $250,000. So look at that. The application opens on April 1st. We will have a webinar on March 27th to provide some more information. We're really looking for those organizations that have that track record between 3 and 5 years of successful community-based problem solving. The second opportunity is our Creative Community Solutions grant making program. This is a grant making program that funds creative community problem solving efforts for up to 6 years, up to $300,000. Creative community problem solving is defined to be developing, testing, and or spreading new ideas that solve problems here in North Dakota. Information about both of those programs can be found on our website, and you can always just give me a buzz if you have more questions.
Awesome. Well, we are 1 minute over our time, so I will leave it at that. And thank you all for being here. This has been great to get together and talk to all of you and find things to be excited about in our local foods sector in North Dakota. So with that, have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
All right. Thanks, Ellen.